Now, Executive Director of United Nations Women, Sima Sama Bahus, has welcomed the news that 50 hostages, all women and children, will be released in return for the release of 150 Palestinian women and children, and a much-needed humanitarian pause. The first set of evacuation is to take place on Friday afternoon. The United Nations Women Chief noted that not only is the number of civilians killed since October 7th twice that of the last 15 years combined, now 67% of the more than 14,000 people killed in Gaza are estimated to be women and children. She told the council that 2 mothers were killed every hour and 7 women every 2 hours. Now joining us on the news is Dr. Chikezie Obasi, a Secretary Guide of Public Affairs Analyst of Nigeria Enugu State Chapter, to discuss this further. Thank you so much, Dr. Chikezie, for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening. Good
evening to you too. Now, we understand that Israel-Hammas has got into an agreement to release a total of about 200 women and children in the truce deal, 150 and 50 from each side. What could possibly go wrong during this window?
I am not expecting anything to go wrong during the window. I believe during this window, Hamas, who is already at the receiving end, would definitely want to live up to the expectations of releasing the captives. And I believe equally that Israel as a nation actually would want to have their citizens, both politically and a relief. They would want their citizens back. So I expect this 4 days truce not to have much problems. Again, it will be a time for Israel to restore, a time for Israel to reevaluate what they've done and then see the next phase of the war. And then for Hamas, they needed this brief because they've lost a whole lot of legitimacy, within the country. The government in Gaza has been actually brought to its on its knees. So I am not expecting anything to go wrong during these first 4 days, and I am expecting them to continue. Remember, this first 4 days is in the first lap, but a maximum of 10 days. So I think the first 4 days, the Hamas would actually try to live up to the expectation. They have not too much, otherwise they may see more catastrophe coming their way.
Now, do you think that this temporary truce can lead to a peaceful talk at the end of the day that will end the war?
No, it will not. You need to look at the objectives of the two sides. The Hamas does not really believe in Israel. They believe they don't believe in two-state nation. They believe that Israel must live the end. And then Israel, on the other side, if you listen to Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, he had made it clear that the objective of the war is to make sure that they remove every inch and every strength of Hamas. And quite clearly that what they are doing is ground clearance. They are trying to provide a city. They are trying to make sure that they have the grips of every inch of the about 360 kilometers square of Gaza. They want to get every bit of what Gaza is and understand it. So I'm seeing Israeli objective as a nation that wants to occupy Gaza and form a new government. So I'm not expecting that this will lead to a permanent peace. The only way it could lead to a permanent peace is that Hamas actually will go back to recalibrate our objectives of accepting Israel as a nation and then agreeing to go to live with Israel. And again, trying to surrender its military capacity, because while this war is going on, you could understand that a whole lot of issues are coming. If you listen to Israel Defense Force, they keep on accusing Hamas of using hospitals, of using schools, building bunkers, underground houses, where they stockpile weapons and so on within Gaza. So Israel would want to get to the bottom and profile each and everybody living within that enclave of Gaza.
Now, these women and children that are set to be released, we understand that the war is still ongoing, even though it is dialed down a bit. But is it advisable to take them back to their homes at this moment? Are they releasing them back to their, it's good to release them to their families, but of course there's a security part of it as well. So where are they going to take them to?
For the Gaza people, it's a difficult one. I'm pretty sure that Israel will want them to go south. They would want them to be to a reasonable extent, Egypt to be involved so that these women and children will be taken care of. And by the way, I am not expecting them to have much medical challenges because they are expected to be managed, they should be under the custody of Israeli army. So I expect that they should give them optimal care. I'm not expecting them to be returned to the north. Israel had actually mentioned that northern part of Gaza people should leave those areas, to move to the south. So I expect that they should be taken down to the south, and then Egypt will be very important in receiving them. Of course, as I am concerned, Israel does not see Hamas as legitimate, governance in Gaza right now. So I expect that those that actually broker the truce should be able to have access to where these women and children will stay, give them proper medical, care, and begin to talk about psychological trauma that they must have undergone through, and then return them. On the side of Israel, I believe that they have a better capacity than what you currently have in Gaza, because once you give them the hostages back to them, they will be able to take them to the hospital and rehabilitate them, then integrate them back to the society.
Right. And finally, now a lot of persons seem to think that the international bodies like the AU and the UN, or the EU and the UN, for example, are not exactly doing a lot, aside calling for peace. But if you look critically at it, are there any possible active actions that they can take?
When this attack occurred, naturally the crisis in the Middle East, if you really look at it right from 1947, 1948, down to today, most of these big nations have actually taken sides. When you mention EU, who are the EU? Is it the UK? Is it Germany? Is it France? These are allies of Israel. And again, the way Hamas handled the October 7th invasion and killing of over 1,000 persons in Egypt actually portrays them to look like a terrorist nation. So you know that these international bodies, like you mentioned, US, they've actually taken sides. And who is UN without US and these world super bodies? Of course, the UN is just an administrative body that it comes to life, with the bites of the super countries of the world. So I'm not expecting them to do anything other than to give them administrative, calls that there should be peace. Now, on the side of Hamas or Israeli peace deal, I don't expect any of those nations, to go against Israel. So they will not do much because they've already taken sides. And the allies of Hamas, the Syria, the Lebanon, some parts of Hezbollah in Lebanon, and even Yemen, are not strong enough, to deter Israel. And nobody actually wants war. So I'm not expecting them to do much beyond just a mere calling for peace, and then aiding that peace will be there. But beyond that, I can tell you, international politics, international diplomacy, war is a tool. And here I think the Israelites will definitely go to war again. So I'm not expecting anything so much coming out of this.
All right, Dr. Chikezie Obasi, thank you so much. That's the most much we can take on the news, but thanks a lot for joining us and sharing your thought and clarifying some things as well. We appreciate your time with us.
Thank you.